Walk into a synagogue in Brooklyn, and you might see men in black hats and long coats, swaying intensely in prayer, with a barrier separating men and women. Walk into a synagogue in Los Angeles, and you might see men and women sitting together, a female rabbi on the pulpit, and guitars accompanying the prayers. Both are Jewish. Both are praying to the same God. Both are reading from the same Torah. So what's going on? Judaism today is not monolithic. It hasn't been for a long time. Modern Jewish life is divided into several major movements, often called denominations, each with its own approach to tradition, law, practice, and belief. These divisions confuse outsiders. They sometimes frustrate insiders, and they raise profound questions about Jewish identity itself. What's the difference between Orthodox and Reform? Where does conservative Judaism fit in? What about Reconstructionist or Renewal movements? Are some denominations more Jewish than others? And how did Judaism, which was relatively unified for most of its history, come to be so divided? Today, we're explaining the major Jewish denominations clearly, fairly, and historically. We'll explore where they came from, what they believe, how they practice, and what distinguishes them from each other. Because understanding Jewish denominations means understanding modern Jewish identity itself. If you love Jewish stories, make sure you subscribe to Jews Chronicles. For most of Jewish history, there were no denominations. There was simply Judaism. Yes, there were always differences. Ashkenazi Jews in Europe had different customs than Sephardic Jews in Spain and the Middle East. Hasidic Jews who emerged in 18th century Eastern Europe differed from their opponents, the Mitnagdim. Communities in Yemen practiced differently than communities in Italy. But these were variations within a shared framework. All traditional Jews accepted the authority of the Torah as divine revelation. All accepted the binding nature of halacha, Jewish law as interpreted through the Talmud and rabbinic tradition. All observed Shabbat, kept kosher, and followed the commandments as understood by their communities. The differences were about custom, emphasis, and style, not about whether Jewish law itself was binding. This unity began to fracture in the 18th and 19th centuries as the modern world crashed into traditional Jewish life. The Enlightenment brought new ideas about reason, individual autonomy, and universal human rights. Political emancipation offered Jews citizenship and integration into European society, something previously unimaginable. Modern scholarship began examining religious texts with historical and critical methods. These changes posed profound challenges. Could Jews participate fully in modern society while maintaining traditional practice? Were ancient laws still relevant in a world of science and progress? Should Judaism adapt to modernity or resist it? Different answers, too. These questions produced different movements. Reform Judaism emerged in early 19th century Germany as the first organized attempt to modernize Jewish practice. The founders of Reform believed that Judaism needed to change to survive in the modern world. They argued that many traditional practices, detailed dietary laws, strict Sabbath restrictions, prayers in Hebrew, were obstacles to Jewish integration into European society and were not essential to Judaism's core message. Early Reform leaders made dramatic changes. They shortened services. They introduced vernacular languages, German, later English, alongside or instead of Hebrew. They added choirs and organ music, mimicking Protestant churches. They eliminated the mechitza, the barrier separating men and women, and introduced mixed seating. They dropped prayers for the restoration of temple sacrifices and the return to Zion, which they considered outdated. Theologically, Reform emphasized Judaism's ethical teachings over ritual law. The prophetic call for justice, compassion, and righteousness was seen as Judaism's eternal core. Ritual practices were viewed as human creations that could be modified or discarded as circumstances changed. The Pittsburgh Platform of 1885, a foundational Reform document in America, explicitly rejected the binding authority of Jewish law, stating that only the moral laws of Judaism were binding, while ceremonial laws were optional. Reform Judaism spread rapidly, especially in America, where it became the dominant form of Judaism among German Jewish immigrants in the 19th century. Over time, Reform has evolved significantly. The movement has reclaimed many traditional practices it once rejected. Hebrew has returned to services, ritual observance has increased, and support for Israel has grown. The Columbus Platform of 1937 and subsequent statements have moved Reform toward greater appreciation of tradition. Today, Reform Judaism is the largest Jewish denomination in America, with approximately 35% of affiliated American Jews. It ordains women and LGBTQ+ individuals as rabbis and cantors, performs same-sex marriages, and emphasizes personal autonomy in religious decision-making. Reform Jews are encouraged to study tradition and make informed choices about their practice rather than following prescribed rules. If you love Jewish stories, make sure you subscribe to Jews Chronicles. Orthodox Judaism emerged as a direct response to Reform. When Reform leaders began changing traditional practice, other rabbis pushed back forcefully. They argued that the Torah was divine and its laws were eternal. Human beings had no authority to abolish what God had commanded. The proper response to modernity was not to abandon tradition, but to maintain it faithfully. The term Orthodox was actually applied by outsiders. Traditional Jews didn't originally use it. They simply called themselves Torah true, or considered themselves the continuation of authentic Judaism. But the label stuck, and Orthodox Judaism became a defined movement in contrast to Reform. Orthodox Judaism maintains that the Torah, both written and oral, was given by God to Moses at Sinai. Halacha, Jewish law, is binding on all Jews. The commandments cannot be changed by human decision, though they can be interpreted and applied by qualified rabbinic authorities. In practice, this means Orthodox Jews observe Shabbat strictly, maintain kosher dietary laws fully, pray 3 times daily, and follow detailed laws governing every aspect of life. Men and women sit separately in synagogue. Women do not serve as rabbis or lead prayer services in most Orthodox communities. But Orthodox Judaism is not monolithic. It contains significant internal diversity. Haredi, ultra-Orthodox Judaism, represents the most traditional wing. Haredi Jews often live in insular communities, dress distinctively, limit engagement with secular culture, and prioritize Torah study above all else. Major Haredi groups include Lithuanian-style yeshiva communities and various Hasidic courts. Hasidic Judaism emerged in 18th century Eastern Europe, emphasizing joyous worship, mystical spirituality, and devotion to charismatic rebbes, spiritual leaders. Different Hasidic dynasties, Lubavitch, Chabad, Satmar, Breslov, Bobov, and many others, have distinct customs and leadership structures. Chabad is particularly notable for its outreach work, establishing centers worldwide to connect with unaffiliated Jews. Modern Orthodoxy seeks to combine full halakhic observance with positive engagement with modern society. Modern Orthodox Jews pursue secular education, enter all professions, and participate in contemporary culture while maintaining strict religious practice. Yeshiva University in New York is a flagship modern Orthodox institution. Some modern Orthodox communities are exploring expanded roles for women within halakhic boundaries, including women's prayer groups and advanced Talmud study. Despite internal differences, all Orthodox groups share core commitments: divine revelation of Torah, binding authority of halakha, and continuity with traditional practice. Conservative Judaism. The middle path. Conservative Judaism emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries as a middle ground between Orthodox and Reform. The founders of Conservative Judaism loved traditional practice and wanted to maintain it. They weren't comfortable with Reform's radical changes, but they also accepted modern scholarship, including the historical study of how Judaism had developed over time. They believed that Jewish law was binding, but that it could and should evolve, carefully through proper process, in response to changing circumstances. The founding institution of Conservative Judaism in America was the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, established in 1886 and reorganized in 1902 under Solomon Schechter. Schechter articulated the idea of Catholic Israel, that Jewish practice should be guided by the consensus of the Jewish people throughout history, not by individual autonomy or rigid adherence to past rulings. Conservative Judaism maintains halacha as binding, but grants its Committee on Jewish Law and Standards authority to reinterpret and modify laws when deemed necessary. Over time, Conservative Judaism has made significant changes, permitting driving to synagogue on Chabad for the purpose of attending services, ordaining women as rabbis since 1985, and accepting LGBTQ plus Jews fully, including ordination and same-sex marriage in recent years. Critics from the right argue that Conservative Judaism has abandoned authentic halakhic process, that its changes are driven by social pressure rather than genuine legal reasoning. Critics from the left argue that it's too slow to change and too bound to legalistic frameworks. Conservative Judaism was the largest American Jewish denomination through much of the 20th century, but has declined significantly in recent decades. Today, approximately 18% of American Jews identify as conservative. The movement struggles with its position in the middle, often feeling pressure from both sides. Reconstructionist Judaism, Judaism as civilization. Reconstructionist Judaism is the smallest of the major movements, but its ideas have influenced all of American Judaism. The movement was founded by Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan, a professor at the conservative movement's Jewish Theological Seminary in the early 20th century. Kaplan developed a radical theology that rejected the traditional concept of God as a supernatural being who intervenes in history. Instead, he defined God as the power that makes for salvation, a natural force within the universe that humans can connect with. Kaplan also redefined Judaism itself. Rather than viewing Judaism primarily as a religion, he described it as an evolving religious civilization, encompassing religion, culture, language, history, social organization, and connection to the land of Israel. Jews are a people, and their religious practices are expressions of that peoplehood rather than divine commands. Jews are a people, and their religious practices are expressions of that peoplehood rather than divine commands. For Reconstructionists, Jewish practices are folkways, meaningful traditions that connect Jews to their heritage and community. They are valuable and worth preserving, but they are human creations that can be modified by each generation. The Reconstructionist movement formally organized in the 1950s and established its own rabbinical college in 1968. It was the first movement to ordain women, 1968, and to fully embrace LGBTQ+ inclusion. Today, Reconstructionist Judaism is small, only about 1 to 2% of American Jews, but its influence exceeds its numbers. Many ideas that Kaplan pioneered, like the bat mitzvah ceremony, which he created for his own daughter in 1922, have spread throughout Jewish life. If you love Jewish stories, make sure you subscribe to Jews Chronicles. Other movements and trends beyond the 4 major denominations, several other movements and trends shape contemporary Jewish life. Jewish Renewal emerged from the 1960s counterculture, blending Hasidic spirituality, meditation practices, egalitarianism, and ecological consciousness. Founded largely by Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, Renewal emphasizes mystical experience, creative liturgy, and personal spiritual growth. It attracts Jews seeking deeper spirituality beyond traditional denominational boundaries. Humanistic Judaism, founded by Rabbi Sherwin Wein in 1963, is a non-theistic movement that celebrates Jewish culture and identity without belief in God. Humanistic Jews observe holidays and life cycle events with ceremonies that emphasize human responsibility and achievement rather than divine command. Open Orthodoxy is a recent trend within modern Orthodoxy that pushes boundaries on women's roles and other issues while maintaining halachic commitment. Its main institution, Yeshivat Chovevei Torah, trains rabbis for this approach. Some in the broader Orthodox world reject open Orthodoxy as having crossed into non-Orthodox territory. Post-denominational or trans-denominational Judaism describes Jews who don't identify with any particular movement or who draw from multiple traditions. Many younger Jews find denominational labels less relevant than previous generations did. Chabad Lubavitch, while technically a Hasidic movement within Orthodoxy, functions almost as its own category due to its massive outreach operation. Chabad runs thousands of centers worldwide, welcoming Jews of all backgrounds without requiring them to become Orthodox. Many Jews who aren't otherwise affiliated encounter Judaism primarily through Chabad. What divides and what unites? The major Jewish denominations differ on several fundamental questions. The nature of revelation. Was the Torah given directly by God at Sinai? Orthodox. Divinely inspired but humanly written? Conservative. Or an entirely human creation expressing the Jewish people's spiritual journey? Reform? Reconstructionist? The authority of halacha. Is Jewish law binding and unchangeable? Orthodox. Binding but adaptable through proper process? Conservative. Or advisory and subject to individual autonomy? Reform? Reconstructionist. Gender roles. Can women serve as rabbis and lead prayer services? Orthodox Judaism says no, with some boundary pushing in liberal Orthodox circles. All other movements say yes. LGBTQ plus inclusion. Orthodox Judaism maintains traditional prohibitions on same-sex relationships. All other movements have moved toward full inclusion, though at different speeds. Conversion standards. Orthodox conversions require full commitment to halakhic observance and are not always recognized by the Israeli rabbinate. Non-Orthodox conversions follow different standards and are often not recognized by Orthodox authorities. These differences create real tensions. Orthodox authorities generally do not recognize non-Orthodox conversions or marriages, which can cause painful situations. The question of who is a Jew divides the community. Yet despite these divisions, much unites the Jewish people across denominations. All Jews share the same foundational texts, Torah, prophets, writings. All celebrate the same holidays, Passover, Yom Kippur, Hanukkah. All share collective memory of the same history, Exodus, exile, Holocaust, Israel. All feel connection to the same peoplehood, the same destiny. A Reform Jew and a Hasidic Jew may practice very differently, but both will feel something when they hear the Shema. Both will remember the same ancestors. Both will recognize themselves in the same story. In conclusion, one Torah, many interpretations. Jewish tradition teaches that when God gave the Torah at Sinai, every Jewish soul, past, present, and future, was present to receive it. If that's true, then every Jewish denomination today represents descendants of those who stood together at that mountain. The denominations exist because Jews have always argued about what Torah means and how to live it. This argument is itself Jewish. The Talmud is an extended argument. Jewish history is a conversation across centuries. Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, Reconstructionist, each represents a different answer to the question, how should Jews live in the modern world while remaining faithful to their heritage? None has a monopoly on truth. Each has produced scholars and saints, communities and institutions, meaningful Jewish lives. The challenge for contemporary Jews is to maintain the argument without forgetting the family, to disagree passionately about practice while remembering shared peoplehood, to hold strong convictions while respecting those who hold different ones. Because at the end of the day, there is one Jewish people, one history, one Torah, even if we argue endlessly about what it means. That argument is not a weakness. It is the sound of a living tradition, still wrestling with eternal questions, still refusing easy answers, still here, still debating, still Jewish. If you love Jewish stories, make sure you subscribe to Jews Chronicles and share this video with someone who needs to understand this. Shalom.